This video will go through the variable view in more detail and will show you how to input information about a variable and enter data about it. Before we can do this, however, it's first important to understand what each of these columns mean. The name column is where you will specify the name of your variable. This needs to be spaceless and unique. Type is where you can specify the type of variable. There's two different main kinds of variable. You have string variables and numerical variables. String variables are just strings of letters, characters and other symbols. These are the kind of variable that SPSS doesn't really understand, but it's useful sometimes to put in there, particularly if you're working with survey data. And such variables can be converted to numerical data, which can be used for more in-depth statistical analysis. In relation to the numeric variables, there's several types. If you click in here, you can see all of the different ones. Select the one that's appropriate for your data. The width setting determines the number of characters used to display the value of the variable. The decimals column allows you to specify how many decimal places you want displaying. The label option allows you to give a more meaningful name for the variable, and you can use special characters and spaces for this. The values lets you preset any values that may be required of that variable. This is particularly useful for numeric variables where you may want to overlay textual data. The missing column allows you to specify any values that represent missing values. The columns column allows you to specify the width of the column. Align lets you choose whether you want text to be centered left or right aligned. The measure column is important for statistical analysis and will allow you to set what kind of variable you have. The first measure option is nominal. Nominal is a categorical data type. This is where each value has been assigned to a discrete category. Examples of this include somebody's eye colour, their marital status, or their gender identity. In each of these cases, these would be numerical variables, but we would allocate a number to each of these values. The number does not really matter because this is categorical data. The second measure type is ordinal data. With an ordinal level of measure, the data is naturally ranked in some way. Examples of this might include the order in which somebody finished a race, or a Likert scale question. In this example, the numbers don't really matter. If we look at the Likert question, with a scale from very good to very poor, this is a good example of ordinal data. We might allocate the number 1 to very poor, the number 2 to poor, 3 to neutral, 4 to good, and 5 to very good. In this case, it is the order of the numbers that matters more than their values. The final measure is that of scale data. There's two types of scale data, but SPSS does not differentiate between the two. With any form of scale data, the numbers are very meaningful. Interval scale is where the 0 value is arbitrary, such as for the Celsius or the Fahrenheit temperature scale. For the ratio scale data, this is where 0 is a fixed point and would include things such as distance, height, or heartbeats. In each of these cases, 0 is an absence. When using SPSS, you don't need to worry about what kind of scale data you have. The option in the interface is just for scale data. This slide is a useful summary of the measures we've just looked at. Now that we've looked at the importance of measure and how to specify that correctly in SPSS, it's possible to return to the SPSS interface and consider the final column role, and it's with this that you can specify the role of that particular variable. Let's go through an example. I'm going to input one variable that represents a question in a survey. For the variable name, I'm going to use Q1 to represent question 1. Under type, I'm going to leave this at numeric. However, this requires no decimal places. I'll revisit this in a little bit. For the label, I'm going to type the question. For this particular question, what is your gender, there was a finite number of options. So I can specify these in values. For each of the textual options, I would have to allocate a number. I'm going to allocate the number 1 to female, the number 2 to male, the number 3 to other, and then I'm going to click OK. It may be that people refused to answer this question, so in the missing dialog box, I'm going to say that there are discrete missing values and I'm going to use the number 9 to represent this. Also notice there are several other options in here. You can specify that there are no missing values, or you can use a range of missing values. Now that I've set this up, I might want to go back into my values option and just specify that 9 equals refused. I'm fine with the column width and alignment as it is. The next thing I need to do is specify the measure. From earlier in this video, we know that this kind of variable is a nominal variable. This is because the numbers have been allocated nominally. I could have used the value 1 for male or 2 for other. The numbers mean nothing. They are just representative of the wider label, and every 1 is the same, as every 2 is the same, as every 3 is the same. The numbers represent categories. This also highlights how this is a numerical variable. Even though it has these textual values, it is these numbers that really matter. Now that we've input our first variable, we can switch to the data view and we can start to input. Here you can choose between value labels, on and off. You can see they're on. This will let me click into each cell and start to specify the values. Alternatively, I can type the numbers in and this will happen automatically. It's really important that you know how to set a data file up, even though most users will actually get their data from elsewhere. The next video will be working with a more complicated dataset downloaded from a survey website.